Hello, my name is Deidre McIntyre, and it's my pleasure to serve as one of your hosts for this Fireside chat with Lynn Albright, as well as with Isaiah Jackson. This is going to be a little bit different from the Barazas. I am going to give somewhat of a very brief, too brief of an introduction of both speakers, and I may start them off with a challenging questions, but what I really want to do is see the interaction between Isaiah and with Lynn as if they were sitting in front of a fireplace and they were just eavesdropping on the conversation. I think that's the best way of kind of getting the two sides of many different stories in terms of our topic for today. So without further ado, our Fireside chat features Lynn Albright, who is the mother of Ross Ulbricht. If you're not familiar with Ross, you can certainly search for him, but he was founder of a decentralized platform called the Silk Road. And ultimately, he became charged with several different nonviolent charges that landed him in prison for 2 life sentences plus 40 years without a chance for parole. And he's still there now. He's been there for several years, and he's there mostly locked up most of the day. And in terms of Isaiah Jackson, he is the publisher of, he's involved in a number of things, but a publisher of a book called Bitcoin in Black America, which is the first book targeting Black people and trying to educate them about the decentralized space. And the Fireside chat that they're going to be discussing today really is involving this idea of privacy. And are we sort of losing the war to this privacy battle in this decentralized space? So the challenging question that I want them to have now, when they come to speak, I do want them to introduce themselves more fully. And then the first question I'd like each of them to tackle before they start talking to each other about whatever it is they wish to talk about is, are we losing the war to decentralized privacy? There was an article that came out in Decrypt on August 31st about a startup that supposedly states that they can now trace Monero wherever it's spent. It's a brand new article. So, what are your concerns? And sorry, Isaiah, ladies first. We'll go with Lynn first. To, what are your thoughts on freedoms and privacy in the blockchain space and these news in terms of your individualized story, as well as in terms of the latest news that have come out that seems to be that the current paradigm is basically to replicate what currently exists in banking and central banking and government controls of money. Are we moving away from the original tenets of Bitcoin, and how do you think it's going to affect us on a national and global scale?
Right. Well, I'd like to just say a little more about Ross as far as Bitcoin, because Ross created the website Silk Road, which was the first proof of use of Bitcoin. It proved that Bitcoin could be used as money, and it really put it on the map. Very few people had heard about Bitcoin before Silk Road. And so because of that, he's been called the second most important person in Bitcoin history after Satoshi. I mean, it's like, some people say that. And he did it. It was all about, for Ross, freedom and privacy, because he could see that we were losing it then, which was 8 years ago. And, I guess when he started it was in 11. So it was more than that. And it's still the question, even though I go to conferences and everybody's talking about money and how to make money, when I'm asked to speak, I always talk about the freedom, and privacy and freedom are the same, right? You can't really have freedom if you don't have privacy. And Ross wrote a essay that's been published, I think in Bitcoin Magazine published it, that is Bitcoin equals freedom. People say Bitcoin's a money or it's a store of value or whatever, but it's really freedom. And so I just wanted to read a quick quote from his essay about the early adopters, because the reason they adopted Bitcoin was for the freedom. And he said, they dreamed of a future where the economic power of the world is accessible to everyone. where value can be transferred anywhere with a keystroke. They dreamed of prosperity and freedom. And to me, that's what's so amazing and great about cryptocurrency. And it's being proven all over the world. And we can talk about that more with people, the unbanked, people who cannot, get a bank account, things like that, that it gives them that freedom. But in any case, as far as do I think we're losing? Well, today it came out, or I just was informed today, I think it came out today, that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said that what the NSA spying on Americans is unconstitutional. Big deal. I mean, that's amazing. But it is overwhelming sometimes to realize, I kind of assume everything I say is being listened to or recorded and that sort of thing. And it is very concerning to me about our losing our freedoms. But I have hope, you just have to hope that with things like Bitcoin, we can keep it. So.
Oh yeah. Perfectly said, Lynn, and I definitely agree with you. Again, I'm Isaiah Jackson, the author of Bitcoin in Black America. I've been in the space for about 7 years now, and most of my clients have been in the Black community. And Bitcoin is one of the tools that, of course, as Lynn said before, is for freedom. Freedom and privacy are the same thing, like she said, and that is sort of the reason why I got into Bitcoin. To start, I saw dollar signs at the beginning, but once I realized how much freedom came from using Bitcoin, from using cryptocurrency, from being able to manage economically where you will be in the future, that to me showed that that is the freedom that we need. Because at the heart of it, most people socially feel free, or in different ways feel like they're free, but as long as your economics are tied up in the Federal Reserve currently, you don't really have any freedom. And at that point, we have to worry about the tracking of your ability to use that Bitcoin. So yes, that Decrypt article I saw as well. One of the things, I think the biggest question about Bitcoin over the last few years has been the privacy aspect. We've seen companies like Coinbase sign with chain analysis. We've seen exchanges have to get bit licenses. We're starting to see governments co-opt the on-ramps for a lot of people to get Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So the privacy aspect has been a big question. The one thing I do want to encourage people whenever they use cryptocurrency is that there are private coins, even like Monero and Zcash, that people say can be tracked. However, in my opinion, what will keep the crypto market strong and to keep it private is the resilience of people. There will always be people who come up with solutions with new private coins or new ways to transact with atomic swaps or other ways to keep that privacy in our industry. And one of the things I don't want people to do is to forget that 2 or 3 years ago people were saying, hey, how can Bitcoin scale? Hey, how can Bitcoin have smaller payments? And now we have Lightning Network. So technology always increases. The rule doubles every 2 years. I'm pretty confident that that privacy question will be answered, and that for the most part, some of the bigger transactions are what's being tracked now, and that most of the retail consumers, your transactions from a privacy standpoint can be tracked, but I don't want to scare you out of the industry thinking that every little thing you do will be tracked. The privacy question, I think, will be answered soon enough. And I think that will be answered probably by the younger generation. So you may have to wait a little bit, but I think the beginning, like Ross Ulbricht saw for freedom, is still intact. And I think going forward, that we can keep that dream alive simply just by being vigilant and relying on the technology.
Oh, can't hear. Why can't I hear?
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Yeah.
Okay, I want you to talk to each other about where you see the direction going in terms of how will people know how to access this privacy. If it is possible. I think the company was called CipherTrace that is making the claim that they can trace Monero now. And also, you know, if people have the privacy, how do they maintain their safety in this decentralized space? Because it's kind of the argument that's being used is that, well, you know, you don't need your privacy because you need to be safe, and we're the people to keep you safe. Whoever the we are, whether it's a financial institution or a government. So where's the counter response to that to say, no, we can maintain safety, and these are the tools that we can use to maintain our safety as well as our privacy in the digital space.
Well,
I'm not going to chime in there anymore. So now this is Lynn and Isaiah sitting in front of a fireplace. You guys can go back and forth, and I'll just let you know when we're coming short on time.
Okay, just real quick, Ross did not, I mean, he did not get his technical abilities from me. I'm totally low tech. I'm one of those people that gets intimidated by the whole thing and using it. You brought up how to use it. And I think that is a barrier. I think that is a barrier for people like me. So just saying, I think that needs to be, but I think it's always going to be a choice between safety and freedom, because, and then we see it now. We see it with a lot of things, not just crypto. And, you know, I don't know how you can have a free society and still think, oh, the government has to take care of me, so I'll sacrifice whatever it takes to be safe. It's just kind of the way it is. And as far as, I have a friend whose company uses a thing called chain analysis. I don't know if you know about it, Isaiah. They can track, things, you know, for sure. And so I don't know, as far as knowing where your coins go and stuff like that, I don't think it's private. But I don't know enough about it. You know, I think really, Isaiah, you should speak to it, because as far as what actually can happen.
So I'm there with you. Like you said before, don't give up your privacy for security, because it always ends up blowing up in your face every time. We've seen this. And one of the things with Bitcoin, there's a level of privacy you can achieve, but Bitcoin as a whole is not completely private. So I think the number one thing we should start discussing, like we have been the last few years, is education. How do people like yourself who aren't as, you know, tech savvy begin to realize there's only a few steps you need to make yourself as private as possible? And that's something that I do on a daily basis. And that's something that I think in this conference, as well as others, is going to take some time. I mean, I keep alluding to that, but I've been around long enough to see that a lot of the questions that we have at certain times are usually answered because it's asked over and over. And I'm one of those people that wants to find solutions to problems. And I think, you know, like you said, it starts with people, individuals, because people are just going to go what the government says every time. Unfortunately, that's what we have. But I think Bitcoin has matured to a point, and cryptocurrency as an industry, we're getting into the political fight. The money aspect, I think we've won. I think we've proven our point that it can transact, people can send it, you can use it as a store of value. I think we've proven that. But now it's becoming political to where countries are fighting for mining power. Governments are fighting with each other over whether Bitcoin can be transacted here, or can it not be, or is it money laundering, or whatever. It's becoming political. So I think what's going to ultimately happen, people are going to have to not necessarily choose sides, but you're going to kind of have to choose sides. You're going to have to say, do I want to go with these man-made laws that make me not able to live, you know, better long-term, or am I going to actually use a system that gives me sovereignty? And ultimately, if we work together, we can come to the solutions to a problem like this with privacy and with other problems that we have as well. But I think it's getting to that point. We all knew this was coming in the Bitcoin industry. We got to go to the political fight, or sort of get people in office who understand that Bitcoin and blockchain technology is here to stay. So we should do everything to foster that growth. And those people are starting to appear now, I think.
Well, yeah, in fact, that was really good. I was interviewed for a show called Open Money. I don't know if you heard about it. It was on Discovery Science, and the point a lot of people were making is, we're going to fall behind as a country if we don't start acknowledging this technology, which is the future, you know? And so the more our government tries to control it and suppress it and regulate it and all that stuff, it's stopping progress for our country and our economy.
We're shooting ourselves in the foot. I mean, we're
Exactly.
literally telling people who come up with innovative ideas, hold up, stop being
Exactly.
innovative for like 2 years. Let
Mhm.
our slow ass Congress, who takes breaks every couple months,
And doesn't
start to
understand
talk.
it.
Doesn't
Doesn't
understand it.
understand it.
Let's
Yeah.
let them talk about it. And
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
don't mean to be ageist, but a lot of them are older to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
point where they don't even want to
Right.
understand it. They're like,
No.
let me get some intern to
I know
explain
how
it to
they
me. And
feel. I know
yeah,
how they feel.
exactly.
You know, it's like, I don't want to
Exactly.
understand. But no,
Yeah, but I
exactly.
mean,
No,
they'll
you're
get
right.
some 20-year-old to explain it to them in 30 minutes, and then they'll make a
Yeah.
decision just based off of that. Or
Yeah.
I remember there was a John Oliver clip where he explained it, in sort of a snarky way. I'm sure there was some guys on the Hill who were like, all right, well, that's what Bitcoin must be. Let me go with that. And these are the people
Absolutely.
who are trying to regulate it. So America's regulate first laws are kind of,
Mhm.
suppressing a lot of innovation, very
Yes.
backwards thinking, because if you go to other countries where they foster Bitcoin and blockchain technology, they're growing rapidly. I know places like Kenya, the digital payment system is surpassed America. I mean, almost everybody I know in
Mhm.
Kenya has some sort of digital wallet, and crypto adoption is right behind it. So in America,
Yes.
a lot of people have the money, but
Mhm.
that money goes to fund politicians who don't really have Bitcoin and
Right.
blockchain technologies best interest at heart.
Plus, there's a brain drain because a lot of people who are very, into crypto, they're leaving the United States because they can't operate here in the same way. And so, yeah, that's really, like you say, shooting ourselves in the foot. And not only do they, denigrate the people who say these things. In my son's case, they put them in jail. I mean, Ross is an innovator. He was a pioneer. He had this idea. And the judge even said, well, we know you started this for philosophical reasons, which Bitcoin really is a philosophical thing. It's about freedom and privacy. And we don't think that's a philosophy you left behind. And you are so dangerous, you have to be put in a cage. Now, since then, of course, it's been more accepted, but in those days, it wasn't. So my point is, there's even risk, and other people have been put in jail over Bitcoin. And I just would like to put a quick plug in for, as Deidre said, my son's sitting in a cage. He's starting his 8th year in October 1st. I believe it was all about the Bitcoin. I'm sure it was. And please go to freeross.org, and there's a petition, just a petition. Please let him out. That's the petition. First time nonviolent offender. Anyway, that's my plug. I just want to make sure it got said. But yeah, it's really keeping us back. And you're right. Everything you said was absolutely correct.
And I wanted to ask you, like, do you think there was more of a like a freedom of speech, like they infringed
Mm-hmm.
on that right? Because technically, that's all
Yes.
Bitcoin really is freedom of speech. Your money
Mm-hmm.
speaks for you. I
Mm-hmm.
believe if we can call corporations people, then we can call money speech.
Good point.
Because
And well, the judge
if
herself said it. She goes, it's philosophical reasons that you did this. Well, since when do we get put in a cage for life for our philosophy in this
exactly,
country? It's
yes,
very,
and
very dangerous. Yeah.
yes, and it's backed by code that is literally written speech. It's numbers,
It's,
letters,
yeah, that's
cryptography,
a good point too. It's all
all
speech.
different forms of speech. So if we actually listen to the Constitution, all these people that bang on the Constitution, freedom of speech is the first thing.
It
That's the
is.
First Amendment. So
Yeah.
you kind of contradict yourself when you don't let something like Bitcoin progress. And I hate to see that happen. And one of the things too, while we're here, like you said before, some people are scared away from Bitcoin because the privacy aspect, even though there is zero privacy at the banking level. I mean,
Right. Zero. Yeah.
that's not even a question. PayPal, banks, it doesn't matter. Stripe, Cash App, it doesn't matter what you use. There's zero privacy.
Yeah.
But since we're here, one of the things I do want to say is that you can achieve a level of privacy in Bitcoin, like I said before. The first layer is the public address, which we're all pretty familiar with. Your public address is not your name because it's not tied to your information. That's the first layer. That can be found based on IP addresses, based on spending from different wallets. So the next level is having your own paper wallets or digital wallets on your own server. And I want people to understand what I mean by that, because some of the people watching are beginners, some people are experienced, but this, I think, can help all of us if you move forward in a way where, yes, you can buy from exchanges. However, if you buy from that exchange, move it off of an exchange to a secure paper wallet, and you can store that like you would gold or anything else into a safe. And one of the things you have to do before you can do that whole process is get a VPN. They're pretty cheap. You can actually get a VPN through Bole with Bitcoin. Also, you want to make sure that you use secure browsing like DuckDuckGo. That's one way to stay as private as possible. You also want to make sure you have two-factor authentication on every website you ever use. You want to use that. And I'm sure, like I said, people watching may know these things, but for you beginning users, yes, you have to be vigilant now in order to keep the privacy in Bitcoin. If you look at it like an investment, I just want to buy it, sell it later, that's fine. But for those of you who see it as freedom of speech, like we said before, those are just a few of the steps that you can take to keep Bitcoin as private as possible. And for the more technical people, you know, that can be explained in things like in Andres Antonopoulos' book, Mastering Bitcoin, and online. You just have to make sure you search it. And some of those solutions, I do want to throw a quick plug, will be in my second book, Bitcoin in Black America, the second edition. So those solutions will be in there as well, because privacy, this is one of the biggest conversations in the Bitcoin industry, in my opinion. So yeah, just want to throw that out there to make sure people watching learn a little something along the way, you know, as much as possible.
Yeah, no, that's good. So yeah, so you know, the main concern, I guess, overarching is the philosophical, well, the speech, but it's like that is expressing your philosophy of freedom and privacy, and that's at the core of the whole thing. And then there's these ways, and I think most people, many people who are involved, that's what they want, and independence from the system that's some say is enslaving us, but you know, independence. And then there's people around the world, like Venezuela. I think it's very actively people are very actively trying to help them with cryptocurrency. I don't know if you know, I mean, people, I know some people who are working on it. Yeah. And, but they're turning to cryptocurrency as a potential help there, and how it can be helped all around the world. Because so many, you know, underdeveloped countries, people can't get to banks. They can't get to money. They can't. And so it would help so many people. It's like a potentially incredible thing that can, you know, so widespread, you know, and yeah, so I think that's a really important point, is like, and that's freedom, you know, that's freedom. Like you said, it's like money, and being able to be in charge of your money is freedom. And if you can't keep a hold on your money and have freedom to use it the way you want, how are you possibly free? You know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the root of it for most people is a monetary system that's free, which I think Bitcoin and crypto achieves. And then, you know, in the Black community, one of the things we see is that from that system, you have freedom in other areas. And one of the things mentioned, there was a story about a guy, or a family, sorry, who got their house assessment with Black pictures on the walls. And then they took all the pictures down, got the house reassessed, and then it was 160,000 more assessment on the house, because they thought the white guy owned it and it was his house.
Oh my God.
So that was just a recent story that happened. And one of the things is that's been happening for years in the Black community, where wealth has been constantly taken out due to a system that was built on racist principles and then trickled down to socioeconomic bubbles. Because yes, you know, there are poor, white, Black, Latino, all people, but it started out racist, and then now all they're doing is following the same template, and now it comes to these these egregious acts where they take wealth out of the Black community. So we start with the base, Bitcoin, as far as freedom, being able to move around. We talk about the real estate market. That's something that could come out where we're starting to see is sort of in a DeFi market where you can get lending, just theoretically, because you know, practically, I don't think this works right now, but theoretically, what we could see is a market where the crypto holdings you have could be used as collateral for a house, and there is no barrier to entry that includes racial discrimination, your zip code, where you live. What could happen is do you have the money? Cool, collateral. Here's the cash.
That's what it should be.
And not only should that be the process, it should be very simple. I think that will be the process as more people are educated about how Bitcoin and cryptocurrency can work. Because once you know that, imagine a real estate conference where you explain that process as something that could happen in theory. And then they're like, well, do we have any solutions? It's like, well, we're very close, but because cryptocurrency has already started down that path, decentralized finance, Bitcoin as well. Yeah. And that to me is where we start solving problems with freedom. You see that with real estate, some of the bigger markets. And then as far as privacy, the transactions at a certain point, you know, you will have to show your face to live there, but that is a part of the freedom that we talk about. And I can't wait to see that feature, simply because the reason we're having this summit is because we want to see a world that's better for us, more free, that's not hell bent on our skin tone.
Absolutely. Well, it's better for, better for one group of people. It's better for other groups of people. We're people, right?
Yeah,
and we're all dealing with a lot of hardship right now. And actually the COVID thing might actually work with that real estate thing, because there's the real estate market's like in chaos, right, over this whole thing. And so that might really be an opportunity to do that. That's really amazing. And you said, well, it's just a theory. Well, this whole thing started out as just a theory.
Exactly. And that's what I want people to remember. It starts out that way, but
it's always an idea.
It's always an idea. Just keep working at it. If it's possible, which is possible, then just keep working at it. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of
the
COVID,
government recognizes go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, have you spoken to Ross during COVID? I want to ask, how has that been?
Yeah, well, it's real quick about the idea thing is that a lot of people say the reason he's in jail is because of his idea. The government takes ideas very seriously, and that's why this is an idea that could be a worldwide revolution. So this whole thing. Anyway, well, it's been hard because the prisons, they are a petri dish for disease because everybody's crammed in, and Ross has gotten sick in the prisons before, flu and stuff. So they have clamped down since March. It's been 6 months, and it's been mainly 22 hours a day, and literally 8x10 metal box where he's fed through a slot in the door. That's pretty much it, except he gets out 2 hours to shower and make calls, limited calls. And now it's 1 hour a week to go outside, which he's so happy about. But during the riots, the whole Bureau of Prisons shut down for 24 hours a day. So that means not getting out of the box it was 3 weeks, I think. So it's been rough, but Ross is strong. He's positive. He wrote an essay recently about privacy and using artificial intelligence, how we can maintain privacy and still not hide people who are hurting people, who hide under the dark web and stuff like that. And he's come up with this whole way to keep privacy and still reveal that, but he can't develop it because he's in prison. I mean, this is the kind of thing Ross would be so all over what you're talking about, Isaiah. He would love this and would have great ideas. I look forward to when you can meet him and talk about it all. And, he's hanging in there. Thank you for asking. It's not easy, but he's strong, and he's doing it. He's staying positive and constructive. So.
Oh yeah, great to hear. And and like you just said, the suppression of ideas based on the actions of government officials is ridiculous. And that's why, like I said before, staying vigilant and doing what you can in order to keep as much of your privacy as possible is very, very valuable. And I want to go back to something you said before, where you were saying being able to be sovereign or to live in, under your own guise. It's funny. I think some people don't want to divide from the government. Unfortunately, you know what I mean? Like, in countries like Venezuela, it's like, oh yeah, let's get away from it. But in the US, I tend to think a lot of people are spoiled to the point where they don't want to, get away from what the government says. They actually want to stay in this little, what they feel is a safety nest of ideas. But if at any point that fails, that's the thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been dead 1,000 times, but it's always come back. It only takes one time for our currency or our economy to really fail. That's the only time I think it'll take for people to realize that. And we're watching it right in front of our eyes.
Yeah,
during this COVID era, we're literally watching, 50 million people go unemployed. The stock market is getting pumped to high heaven because, in my opinion, it's the exit pump. It's just printing money and giving stock buybacks.
Money, yeah.
And nobody else is seeing that money. And I think we're just starting to see the effects of that. I think somebody just stated today we had 10% of people were evicted. 10% of tenants, that you know how many people that is, and
Oh
that's
my
going to
God.
cascade into something else.
Oh
So
yeah.
yes, you know, I tend to think that in America we're kind of spoiled to the point where like okay, well, Bitcoin's cool, but why would I need it other than just trading it or
Yeah.
whatever? And
Right.
the freedom that we talk about comes from the fact that we can live anywhere in the world and transact in Bitcoin at some point,
Mm-hmm.
which is the point, and
Yeah.
Americans have to realize that.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, people are very complacent because they have lived such an easy life comparatively to Venezuela, for example.
Mhm.
And I think you're right. I've often wondered, is it innate in the human spirit to want to be free, or maybe there are two kinds of people? I've asked a lot of people that, and different people have different opinions. I'd like to think it's innate, but I don't know. And
Yeah.
it's true that it gets comfortable. You want to be safe. Now, the thing is, they are like printing so much money and all of that. The thing about, correct me if I'm wrong, Isaiah, but
Mhm.
there's a limited number of Bitcoin. It can't
Yes.
be inflated like a fiat. So it's going to keep its value, even with halvings and all that, right? It's
Mhm.
still, right. So
Yeah,
it's
it's
different than fiat
deflationary.
currency, right?
Totally different. Yep. And
Yeah.
it's deflationary. The network effect of more people, the demand increasing while the supply stays steady and it's
Mm-hmm.
constantly harder to buy. Yes, that is very, very simple math. The price increases from there. And, you know, the price brings people in, and a lot of times people get excited. But when you know the real root reason of why Bitcoin was created, why people use it, that's what keeps people around. And you know, some of the things we've seen as a result of that is this booming industry where, you know, like we keep referring back to where with people want this freedom. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Do you think that freedom can be achieved if we keep using, you know, social media that's centralized? Because getting the word out on Twitter, on Facebook, they shut down, because we've seen
Yeah.
on YouTube,
Yeah. Shadow
YouTube, they've
banning.
shut down they've shadow banned a lot of people. We've had our stuff shadow banned on Facebook. I know on
You have?
YouTube, we've had videos taken down. Yep. Our channel wasn't taken down, but the Gentleman of Crypto, yes, we've had shows taken down, certain things. And one of the things that I said before was education. That was one of the biggest
Right.
things. So if you can't educate people on these
Mm.
platforms, do you think decentralized social media is something that can help with privacy as well?
Sure. I mean, I have friends who also, I didn't realize it happened to you and King and guys over there, but also other friends who've just been, they were making a lot of money every month and working hard, and then all of a sudden shadow banned.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is censorship, I mean, of course. And
Yeah.
it is, who's deciding this? Some guys and, I don't know, exactly. Now it's a matter of adding, and I'm guilty of this. I still use the usual channels because I'm so busy and trying to learn a whole learning curve. So it is, but yes, definitely it would be better to be on decentralized platforms, right? But it's a matter of getting, I guess some have tried to get up there. I doubt that they're not taking off like, Twitter and Facebook and all that. I don't know. And then I think it's been floated about, well, they're a monopoly and we need to do some kind of legislation. I'm always hesitant about legislation.
Yeah,
And
don't legislate everything away.
yeah.
Yeah.
It always seems to mess up somehow. But I don't know. I mean, are they any different from the, industrial barons, back in the 30s who small businesses couldn't get ahead because these people controlled everything? I don't know. But yeah, I think that bottom line, you're right. How can we have education, freedom of thought, interaction of ideas, and progress?
Oh,
And
yeah. And
if this
I
is
mean,
going on, you
listen,
can't.
yeah, how can you do it? Especially like you said, suppression. I've had my
Yeah.
book suppressed by Amazon. Most people don't realize the Kindle
Oh my
version was
God.
suppressed for
Oh
weeks,
my
and
gosh, that's
shipping was suppressed
terrible.
for months. So yes, literally they sent me emails suppressed for these reasons, and it was for no real reasons. But yes, that suppression does happen, and I think
Yeah.
that you know, decentralized social media is one example, but of course, the blockchain industry as a whole opens up the world of being able to get things out in a decentralized manner.
Yeah.
I would love to see a future where they were bigger, but I would never say never, simply because, you know, MySpace was the biggest thing smoking, you know, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
15
Mm-hmm.
years from now,
Mm-hmm.
people could, and this is
Mm-hmm.
personally what we do, I always keep some sort of decentralized solution to whatever I'm using. So even with YouTube, we have a decentralized video platform just in case we need to move there.
What do you use? DTube? Or what do you use?
Minds.com.
Right.
and we have signed on with DTube as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
DTubeMinds.com. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, with decentralized social media, not as prominent, you know, going forward. But before, I had Steam for
It
years.
could
I had
grow. Yeah,
Steam
me too,
the
Steam.
day it came out, and that's the thing. So I always kept sort of a backup because I don't trust. You know, one of the things Bitcoin teaches you
Yeah,
is
me
don't
too.
trust any centralized service, because
Right.
if they can be influenced by government officials, they can be taken down just like anything else. So
That's true.
always, anybody watching, keep sort of a decentralized backup or something,
Mm.
a smaller platform that may not have the attention yet where it can be
Mhm.
taken down, because you want to, you know, be able to get the word out there and educate so that we can get this freedom that we're speaking of in this day and time, since we can't see
See,
each other face to face as much anymore.
yeah, you're inspiring me to put this on the top of my to-do list because I keep putting it away, aside. But I actually found out that I was also Ross's channel that I was also shadow banned. I didn't know it. They said, "Oh, you're demonetized." And I said, "Well, I'm not making any money anyway. Who cares?" And a friend said, "Well, that means they're shadow banning you."
Yep.
So I'm just trying to free my son from prison.
Yeah, I
Why are you doing this to me?
yeah, it's free, yeah,
I'm not a
free speech
threat to
ain't free.
anyone.
Yeah,
Yeah, but same thing. I mean, who decides these things? Well, it's arbitrary, and obviously they have an agenda. They
yeah.
definitely have an agenda.
Yeah, and as we call it on our show, the tap on the shoulder. That's sort of
Mm.
when, you know, you get some money, your company starts doing well, and then you get that tap on the
Oh,
shoulder. Sort of like who I believe it was Putin did an interview recently. He was saying how every politician has great ideas when they start, and then
yeah.
all of a sudden they don't do anything they said for a reason. He was like, the guys in the black suits and the blue ties show up with the
Wow, that's
briefcases,
a good image. That's so
and
true.
he says
Mm.
they sit down and say, okay, this is how things really work. And that's what I think a lot of governments indirectly do with these companies. And they've
I
done it
agree. Of
across the
course they
board in
do.
Bitcoin. They say, oh, great, you made a lot of money. Cool. Now you owe us this. And if that doesn't happen, then your business is over. And I think that's where you get people to comply. And that's why I shout out to people like the Kraken CEO, Jesse Williams, I believe
Oh
his
yeah,
name.
Kraken.
He didn't comply when they
Yeah,
kept sending them letters to send them data. He was like, no, well, you have nothing
yeah,
to do with us. You won't even
yeah.
regulate it to the point where we can get clear regulation on what we need,
Mhm.
and now we owe you money. No, that's
Mhm.
you can keep that. So I like the fact that
That's
people are
good to
starting to
hear. I didn't
push
realize.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
people are starting to
Absolutely.
push back, and I think as these companies grow and swell, say we get $1 trillion exchange at some point, you really think they're going to comply with the government agency? It's like no, kind of like Apple. They're like, you want a back door? No, you don't get it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're just
Mm-hmm.
going to have to listen. So hopefully that day comes, and we just have to keep pushing.
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
This has been a great fireside chat. I just want to kind of recap before we're out of time, because you guys really got rolling, and I hope you follow up, with one another, beyond this,
Yeah.
and keep the discussion going.
Always.
Because
Yeah.
I think that this is designed so that we can kind of eavesdrop on two great minds, working on a same problem from different vantage points, so that the rest of us can learn from you. So I think some of the points that were touched upon is that Ross is indeed working on some writings that, right now he can't get out on privacy, and because he's on lockdown for about 22 hours a day. We also know that Isaiah is coming out with a second book for Black people in cryptocurrency, and there will be aspects in terms of privacy. Governments such as Venezuela, and I think Sinclair would be remiss if we didn't also mention Zimbabwe as well. Many different countries around the world have no access to any viable fiat, or if the fiat that they have access to is not really aiding the people. It's a very big issue. I think one of the conundrums is that, how do we ensure safety? But this is also a pushback against racism as well. This idea of being anonymous. It's not just we're not just tackling social economic issues versus poor whites in Appalachia versus whites in New England who may be better advantaged or something like that. But it's also, well, what are the Native American? What are the Black? What are the et cetera, different people? What are the outward phenotype problems that kind of magnify this type of discrimination that is continuing in our country? And, the aspect of social media, the fact that there is a quiet repression that we know about that most people don't know about, that if you speak about cryptocurrency, that you have your videos removed or you have your sites repressed. I think these are long-going issues, and then ultimately we really have to look to privacy. So any parting words before we're finished, because you have about 2 minutes, maybe.
Well, I'll just real quick say that all of this, being involved in all of this, has brought it to the forefront of my mind that we're at a crossroads in history. I really believe that. I think that we're at a tipping point. So we can still, and I'm always heartened talking to people like Isaiah, who know so much and who are so, coming up with so many ideas. But it's like we can either go towards innovation, freedom, privacy, the individual ideas, and allowing them to flourish, or we can go towards government control, suppression of ideas, and not have as good a culture, not have as good a country or a world. I mean, in my opinion, right? So we're at this tipping point. It's a very important time in history, and it's time for people to really look at it and decide what they want and what they're willing to do to have it. And crypto's part of that.
Absolutely. And I just want to say that 2020 is the year. If every year prior to it, you've been saying, I'm about to, I'm going to, this is the year. You've been sitting at home, you haven't been quarantined, you didn't have anything else. This is the year. If you haven't noticed, like you said, it's the tipping point, and Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, blockchain technology, all of those aspects converging at a time right when we're seeming like we're unstable as a country, as the entire world, is no coincidence. This is what Bitcoin was built for, and 2020 has proven that. And I want people to understand that going forward, everybody can use it, but in the Black community, we should really be vigilant, because we understand that this system that we're currently in was not built for us. So we need to push forward with another. So just want to make sure everybody stays vigilant, like I always say, and free Ross, man. Shout out to him.
Thank you.
Definitely free Ross, and thank you to Lynn as well as Isaiah and joining us in this Black Blockchain Summit fireside chat. So much data, so much information, and we've got some work to do.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm Deidre McIntyre.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.